मैं वंदना आप सबका यूपीएससी टाइम में स्वागत करती हूँ। आज की वीडियो में हम एनसीईआरटी हिस्ट्री क्लास 10th का चैप्टर 6 देखने वाले हैं, जो कि है वर्क लाइफ एंड लेजर। इट्स लेक्चर 1 ऑफ दिस चैप्टर। नाउ स्टार्ट दिस चैप्टर। The first rise is The God Visit Earth, novel by Durgacharan Rai. In 1880, Durgacharan Rai wrote a novel, Debangar Mate Agaman, The God Visits Earth, in which Brahma, the creator in a Hindu mythology, took a train to Kolkata with some other god. As a Varuna, the rain god, conducted them around the capital of British India. The god were struck by the big modern city, the train, the large ship on the river Ganga, factories, bleaching, smoke, breeze, and monuments, and a dazzling array of shops selling a wide range of commodities. The gods were so impressed by the marvel of the teeming metropolis that they decided to build a museum and a high court in heaven. Kolkata in the 19th century, the city of Kolkata in the 19th century was brimming with opportunity for trade and commerce, education, and the jobs, but the gods were disturbed by another aspect of society life. It is the thief is grounding poverty and the poor quality of the housing for many. Brahman himself got tricked into the buying a pair of cheap glass, and when he tried to buy a pair of a shoe he was greatly confused by the shopkeeper, who accused one another of being swindler. The gods were also perturbed at the confusion of a caste, religion, and a gender identity in the society. All social distinction that appear to be natural and normal seem to be breaking down, like Durga Charan Rai. Many other in the 19th century India were both amazed and confused by what they saw in the cities. The city seemed to offer a series of contrasting images and experience wealth and poverty, splendor and dirt, opportunity and the disappointment. Where cities were like that, let us explore how the modern city emerged and what happened within the city. Urbanization was a long history. The modern city worldwide has developed only over the last 200 years. Three historical processes have shaped modern cities in a decisive ways: the rise of industrial capitalism, the establishment of colonial rule over the large part of the world. Character of the city. How do we distinguish between city on the one hand and the town and the villages on the other hand? Town and cities that appear along river valleys such as Nipur and the Mohenjo-daro were large in scale than other human settlements. Ancient city could develop only when an increase in the food supplies made it possible to support a worldwide range of non-food producers. Cities were often the center of political power, administrative network, trade and industry, religion, institution, and intellectual activity, and supported various social groups such as artisan, merchant, and the priest. Cities can vary greatly in size and complexity. They can densely settle modern day metropolises, which combine political and economical function for an entire region and support very large population, or they can smaller urban center with a limited function in the presentation, we will look in some detail at two modern cities as example of metropolitan development. The first is London, and the largest city in the world and an imperial center in the 19th century, and the second is Bombay, one of the most important modern city in India's subcontinent. Industrialization and rise of modern city in England. Industrialization changed the form of urbanization, the modern world. The early industrial cities of Britain, such as Leeds and Manchester, attract a large number of migrants to the textile mill set up the late 18th century. In 1851, then three-quarters of the adults live in Manchester were migrant to the rural area. Apart from the London dockyard, five major type of industries employ large number of clothing and footwear, wood, furniture, mills and engineer, painting and stationery, precision products such as surgical instrument, watches and the object of the precious metal. During the First World War 1914 to 1918, London began a manufacturing motor car and electrical goods, and the number of large factories increased until they accounted for nearly one-third all jobs in the city. Marginal group. As the London grew, crime flourished. Criminal activities increased in this period, for a crime became an object of widespread concern. The police were worried about law and order, philanthropists were anxious about the public morality, and the industrialists wanted a hard-working and orderly labor force. So the population of criminals was counting. Their activities were vast and their ways of life were investigated. Henry Matthew wrote several volumes on the London labor and compiled long list of those who made a living from a crime. Many of whom he listed as a criminal were in fact poor people who lived by stealing lead from the roofs and food from the shop, lumps of coal and clothes dying on a heads. There were others who were more skilled at their trade, expert at their job. They were the cheats and trickster, pickpockets, and the petty thieves crowding the street of the London in an attempt to discipline the population. The authority imposed high penalties to crime and offered work to those who were considered the deserving poor. Condition of the women and the children. Factory employed large area in the late 18th and early 19th century. With the technological development, women gradually lost their industrial job and were forced to work within a household. In 1861, census recorded a quarter of the million domestic servants in London, of whom the vast majority were women, many of them recent migrants. A large number of women used their homes to increase family income by taking to the leisure to throw such as activities as tailoring, washing, and the matchbox making. Large number of children were pushed into the low-paid work, often by their parents. Andrew Morans, a clergyman who wrote The Bitter Cry of the Outcast London in 1880, showed why crime was more profitable than laboring in a small underpaid factories. A children 7-year-old is easily known to make a 10 shilling 6 pence a week from a thieving. Before he can gain as much as the young thief must make a 56 crores of matchbox a week, or a 1296 a day. It was only after the passage of the Compulsory Elementary Education Act in 1870 and the Factory Act beginning from the 1902 that children were kept out of the industrial work. Housing. After the Industrial Revolution, the population in a city grew larger. Factory or workshop owner did not house the migrant. Instead of individual land owner put up a cheap and unsafe tenement for the new arrival. For the betterment of the city dweller, demand clear the slums, and gradually a large number of people began to recognize the need of the housing of the poor. The reason for this increasing concern were first the vast mass of one-room house occupied by the poor were seen as a serious threat to a public health, as they were overcrowded, badly ventilated, and lack sanitation. Second, there was a worries about the five hazard created by the poor housing. Third, there was a widespread fear of social disorder, especially after the Russian Revolution in 1917. Worker mass housing schemes were planned to prevent the London poor from the turning rebellion. A London slum in 1889, but are the different uses of the street space that are visible in the picture, what would have changed in the condition of the working class housing in the 20th century. Architect and planner Ebenezer Howard, architect and planner Ebenezer Howard development the principle of the garden city, a pleasant space full of plants and trees where people would both live and work. He believed this would also produce better quality citizens. Following Howard's ideas, Raymond Unwin and Barry Parker designed the garden city in of a New Year week. There were common garden spaces, beautiful views, and a great attention to the detail in the end. The only well-off worker would afford these houses. Between the two World War, 1919 to 39, the responsibility for the housing of the working class was accepted by the British state, and the million houses, most of them single family cottages, were built by authorities. Meanwhile, the city was extended beyond the range where the people could walk to work, and the development of suburb made new form of mass transport absolutely necessary. Transport in the city, the London Underground Railway partially solved the housing crisis by the carrying large number of masses people to and from the city, and the first selection of the Underground Railway in the world opened on 10 Jan 1863 between the Pendignton and Farrington Street in London. Paddington and Farrington Street in London is important place. On that day, 10,000 passengers were carried with the train running even at 10 minutes. By the 1880, the expanded train service were carrying 40 million passengers a year. At first, people were afraid to travel the underground. To make approximately 2 miles of railway, 900 houses had to be destroyed as the London Tube Railway led to a massive displacement of the London poor, especially between the two world wars. Social change in the city in the 18th century, the family had been a unit of production and consumption as well as political decision making. The function and the shape of the family were transformed by city in the industrial city. Ties between the member of household loosened, and among the working class, the institution of the marriage tend to break down. Women of the upper and middle class in Britain faced increasingly higher level isolation, although their lives were made easier by domestic maid who could clean and care for long children on low wages. Many social reform felt that the family as institution had broke down and need to be saved or reconstructed by the pushing these women back into the home. With this slide, I stop this lecture at here. In the next video, we will complete this chapter. If you have query related to subject or a chapter, you can ask in comment box. And if you like this video, then hit the like button. And if you are new in this channel, please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so that notification of upcoming videos come on to your time, and share the video. Thanks for watching the video. Continue with the channel.